calling is I'm concerned about having the commission get some guidance as to, what is going on at the airport with respect to what appears to be, development of the airport for use by Amazon as a cargo facility. I referenced in April 2020, Amazon announced that they were building a distribution facility in Camarillo. And on June 1st, there was a slide presented to the commission that out of the blue, Amazon leased 150,000 square feet across the street from Air 7 as a parking facility. That's 2.5 acres of parking with a $202,000 a year rent. Now, if they're putting delivery vans there must be a reason. The rumor currently circulating at the airport is that Air 7 currently either was sold or leased a significant portion of it to a new party, and everybody's real buzzing that it was Amazon, which would make sense if the parking lot's across the street. And the question I have for the commission is Air 7 in fact being developed as an Amazon air cargo facility? That's question number one. And question number two, will all or part of Cloud 9, the new hangars, will that be used by Amazon? I've heard that Amazon's, the lessee of a significant portion of that facility. If that's true, then it won't be an executive jet facility, as the Board of Supervisors was told on June 16th when they gave their approval. And finally, if it is going to be used as a cargo handling facility, is there going to be a new negative declaration or environmental impact study? Because the impacts change dramatically. I think of, for example, the voluntary curfew. Cargo operations are uniformly during the night. Are we now going to start having cargo aircraft arriving, during the wee hours of the morning? Because that'll have a huge public impact. That's my comment. It's really a set of questions. I think if any of this is true, it's critically important to the future of the airport as the general aviation airport we know it and love it to be. And I would like the commission to get answers for us, if you would. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you, Mark.
If you refresh your Department of Airports YouTube page, the link should be streaming now.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Any comments by commission members? Okay, there being none, we'll move on to agenda item 5, unfinished business. There being none. New business. Authorization for the Director of Airports or designee to award annual consulting fees contract for fiscal year 2020 to 2021 and to issue work orders against these contracts. Staff, Director Turner, can you?
Excuse me, Chairman. What was the item you just called out?
6A, authorization for Director of Airports or designation consulting services for the year ending to issue work orders against these contracts. I think that's the Mead and Hunt.
Chair, this is Anna. I believe you're reading the 6A from the minutes, not tonight's agenda.
Okay, excuse me. You're absolutely right. So here we go. I apologize. So under new business, 5A. So receive and file a summary of the tenant workshop held on August 25th for the Oxnard Airport Runway 7-25 taxiway connectors and parallel taxiway pavement reconstruction project. I know that Kip wanted to comment on this, and I apologize for being on the wrong page.
No, thank you, Mr. Chairman. And thank you for the opportunity to introduce this. As you all know, the Oxnard Runway redevelopment project is underway for spinal design efforts. And part of those spinal design efforts includes a number of workshops that are publicly involved workshops, opportunities for questions, answers, and feedback, and presentations by the design team. And as such, we have tonight for you Mead and Hunt representatives who will go over the presentation that we had for our first public workshop. That first workshop was held, I think it was last week, the 25th, I believe it was, of August. Yes, 25th of August. We had a good participation, good turnout. I think we had like 66, 68 maybe attendees, plus all of our staffing personnel and so forth that was there. So I think what I'll do at this point is go ahead and turn it over to Mead and Hunt. And I'm not sure exactly, or maybe I should turn it over to Erin and let her introduce the Mead and Hunt team. So Erin Powers, our projects administrator, I'll turn it over to her and let her take it from here.
Good evening. Yes, Kip, thank you. You did a great introduction. I'm going to keep it very short. Mead and Hunt did a wonderful job bringing the project information to tenants, and we wanted to make sure that that experience was relayed to our commission, and a little bit with a summary of some of the feedback we received and the ability to ask any questions. And with that, I will hand it on over to Chuck McCormick, who will be kicking this off. Thank you.
Thank you, both Kip and Erin. So I'll start this off. Introducing myself, Chuck McCormick. I'm the project manager for this project at Oxnard Airport, so I'm the project manager. If we can go to the next slide, that'd be great. There we go. Second, and as part of this discussion will be Jeff Leonard, principal in charge and one of our senior civil engineers on the project. Also then Jeanette Larrera. She's the senior civil design lead for this project at Oxnard Airport. And then Alex Radovanovich, he's a senior civil engineer as well, and also leading the phasing and alternate designs for this project. Next slide. And I'll give you a little bit of background on myself, too. I've been working on airport development projects for the past 30 years and also private pilot for excess of 30 years as well. So I'm a big fan of aviation and I've been working with my whole career. So first off, and this goes back to the public workshop, like Kip said, that was held on Tuesday, August 25th. And, you know, why are we here? We're going to discuss the purpose of this project, the project overview and description, the options available for this project that we've investigated, the phasing alternatives for this project. And then during the public workshop, we also conducted a survey during this project. We had a couple questions, and we'll show you what those are and show you what the results of those projects were, of those survey. Then we'll follow it up with any questions that you have, and we'll be able to answer those for you. And then we'll identify future meetings and contact information for this project. So next slide, please. So first off, on the project is about the project overview. So the project is at Oxnard Airport, which is a public airport owned by the County of Ventura, like you all know, located in Oxnard, California. The airport's single runway, runway 725, along with its parallel taxiway, taxiway Foxtrot, and its connector taxiways Alpha through Echo. The project includes the design of this, and the construction will be the removal of existing pavement surface and excavating to subgrade, the construction of new pavement section and crushed aggregate base course shoulders, application of new pavement markings, installation of installation of under drain system and adjustments to the storm drain, installation of new edge lights, and along with MALSEF light. The MALSEF is your approach lighting system, and installation of new airfield signs. The next slide, please. So as far as the project description, the project will be designed, which is currently in design right now. We've passed the 30% design stage, and we're approaching the 60% design stage. And the project is being laid out to bid as a single bid package, but we're going to have a base bid and then two bid alternates. So the base bid will include the runway 725 reconstruction as the base bid. And then bid alternate 1 will be the taxiway connectors Alpha through Echo and their reconstruction. And then bid alternate 2 will be the parallel taxiway Foxtrot of its reconstruction. So that gives you kind of what the project overview and the description is. And then now I'm going to turn it over to, and we can go next slide, I'm going to turn it over to Jeff Leonard. Jeff?
Thanks, Chuck. So time does change everything. The day after pavement is constructed, it starts to wear and deteriorate due to several different types of factors, including climate, construction materials, aircraft operations, stormwater drainage, as well as construction qualities. This slide is just showing the representation from 1994, 2003 to 2018, and you can obviously see there's been significant improvements to the airport. And next slide, please. And so the major objective was to keep the runway in a safe operational condition. The last major reconstruction project for Oxnard was in 1992, followed by surface seal coats in 2003 and 2012. And as part of our engineering services contract for the County of Ventura, we did pavement analysis studies of the pavement condition in 2012 and 2016, which resulted in the runway being in what was defined by the FAA as fair condition. So the time has come for a major improvement project, and there's really two options looking at the alternatives and what we can do to continue to keep the runway in safe operating condition. So rehabilitation is when the underlying base and the subgrade is of adequate section and quality, and the surface of the runway can be removed, replaced, or improved. A reconstruction is required when the underlying base and the subgrade is no longer sufficient to support operations, or rehabilitation is no longer cost effective. Next slide, please. And so we ran several pavement design alternatives which were evaluated for the rehabilitation method as well as the reconstruction method, with a total of 7 options, or 7 alternatives that we analyzed, and those are in accordance with the FAA requirements based on several types of characteristics, including subgrade strength and quality, as well as the aircraft fleet mix are 2 of the major parameters that affect the pavement design. We evaluated costs, construction duration, as well as quality and the longevity of the improvements. And based on the different variables that we reviewed, the reconstruction option prevailed, and that's likely, or mostly due to the quality or the low quality of the subgrade and the need to add additional aggregate base. The rehabilitation option and the additional aggregate base for the pavement section outweighed the cost of improving the subgrade strength. And so as part of our preliminary analysis that I believe I presented a little over a year ago to the county folks, is that based on the costs and all the different options, the FAA did review our design alternatives, and they concurred with our pavement reconstruction approach, which was the most cost-effective alternative. Next, Jeanette will talk about the phasing alternatives that we reviewed. Next slide, please.
Thank you, Jeff. Yeah, so we analyzed several phasing alternatives for construction that take into consideration the safety, the runway availability, project duration, and cost. And we'll be presenting to you 5 of these alternatives. These include Alternative 1, which is full runway closure with no arrivals or departures. Alternative 2 will be a 2-phase construction with limited runway availability. Alternative 3, it's a 3-phase construction with limited runway availability and full runway closure. Alternative 4, which is closing the runway and converting taxiway Foxtrot as a temporary runway. And alternative 5, to close the runway and all the taxiways for night work only. So basically, even though we analyze all these alternatives, but then some of these are not feasible, and we'll explain more in the following slides. And just so you know, construction is expected to occur in the summer or fall of 2021, but this is all subject to FAA funding. So next slide. So for alternative one, this means that the runway will be closed completely. All the taxiways will be closed, so there will be no arrivals or departures. And then no airfield facilities will be available, like the PAPIs, the glide slopes, all of the navies will be turned off. So this allows for greater concurrent operations, and then the quality of the product will be better because everything's done at the same time. So this will take approximately like 3 to 4 months for the main work of the element, plus an additional like 2 weeks of night closures for grooving and the final markings. So next, Alex will talk to you about alternatives 2, 3, and 4.
Thank you, Jeanette. So, one second here. One of the things we wanted to explore is it possible to do the project in such a way that you can have, partial runway closures, but still be able to do, a substantial amount of construction? And how many phases would that take in order to accomplish this? So if you go to the next slide, you'll see the first exhibit of how this could potentially be broken up. This is essentially a half and half scenario. So try to minimize the phasing to do it in 2 major work areas. In order to determine the runway length, we basically started with the same location for the displaced 2.5 threshold, and then the runway 7 threshold was cited based on access via taxiway Charlie. So the resulting runway length is approximately 2,500 feet. With this length, should be able to accommodate most turboprops. Not likely to accommodate much larger than that. And with the construction zone, in order to try to get as much possible area constructed, we have a approximately 400-foot clearance zone between runway 7 and where you can see the red. And this is based on maintaining a safe distance between construction equipment and the aircraft that are on approach. And it should also be noted that for these reduced runway scenarios, it is assumed that the conditions will be VFR and daytime operations. And then if you go to the next slide, you'll see what the second half of this looks like. So this is basically construction is picking up where we left off in the middle of the runway and constructing the next half. That same 400-foot clearance from construction to runway 25 sort of dictates where that threshold is going to be, and that leads to a reduced length of about 2,100 feet. So less of a length than the other side. There are different variations of runway length that can be done depending on whether back taxi conditions are done instead of access via taxiway Charlie. But this is the one we looked at. At the end of the day, you're between 2,000 feet and 2,500 feet of runway is what you can expect for this alternative. And this would potentially be, Jeanette said, about 3 to 4 months for the full closure. We'd probably be looking at about 5 to 5.5 months of overall construction duration, plus the 2 weeks of night closure. Next slide, please. So that was a half and half alternative. What would this look like if we wanted to explore a 4,000-foot runway? So the next slide shows what that would look like. So you can see right away the significant reduction in the amount of construction that can be accomplished while the runway is open. And a 4,000-foot runway will clearly allow larger aircraft than a 2,500 feet. Not likely to accommodate much more with wingspan over 79 feet. So you're still not necessarily getting the large jets here, but you are definitely getting more than what you would with a 2,500. The safety zone is the same 400-foot clearance as the previous alternative. But if you go to the next slide, you'll see the impact of what this alternative is that even though you're able to maintain, an operational runway for a portion of the project, there's going to be this big chunk in the middle that's going to have to be a full closure anyway. And it's not likely that this would be much less than, 3 months of full runway closure. So that is the sacrifice of this type of alternative. And then if you go to the next slide, you'll just see what the final portion of this alternative is. Similar to the first one, except this one will now include the construction of the approach lighting system as well. And we estimate that this alternative would be roughly 6 to 6.5 months of overall duration. Next slide, please. So another thing we wanted to take a look at is, is it possible to convert Taxiway Foxtrot into a temporary runway? And so you can see the exhibit on the next slide. So you can see the issues with this alternative because of the proximity of Foxtrot to, adjacent hangars, adjacent landside areas, and what we came to realize is that there is a significant safety concern with FAA required safety zones that would need to be addressed. And at the end of the day, we just don't consider this to be a feasible alternative based on those issues. So if you go to the next slide, I will actually turn it back over to Jeanette, and she'll wrap up with the final alternative.
Thank you, Alex. Yeah, so for this last alternative, we analyzed to see if we could do only night work. So basically, we'll be closing the runway and the taxiways at night for 10 hours and then opening it back during the day. But we found that this is actually not feasible because the nature of the work activities, and especially because we will be having changing grades. So, and then also the creation times for the subgrade. Since we have to do a LAMP-treated subgrade, the creation time, it wouldn't allow us to open it, to have it just close at night and then open it daily. And then also for FAA requirements and testing and stuff. So next slide. And then for this next slide, Chuck is going to explain to you the survey that we had during the regional workshop.
Okay, thanks, Jeanette. Thank you very much. So you heard kind of what the alternates 1 through 5 are that we've taken a look and considered during the design. But as part of the public workshop that was held back on August 25th, we had 2 questions to the group, and that was, what is more important for you? One being limited runway availability, and that would really be alternate 2, whether you have a 2,100-foot runway length or up to a 2,500-foot runway length, or is it expedited construction duration? In other words, get the project done as fast as possible, which means that's back to alternate 1, where you close the runway, the connector taxiways, and the parallel taxiway so the construction can be done in an expedited way. So you get it all done at once. You get good grades, you get a good product when it's all said and done. So the great thing with the public workshops now being conducted via Zoom, let's go to the next slide, and we could actually see the results before the workshop was finished. So what is more important to you? So we had a total of 42 participants participate in this survey. So we had, for the expedited construction duration, you can see that 20 people selected that. And then under limited runway availability, which is the alternate 2, where you have 2,100 feet up to 2,500 feet of runway available, we had 22 people select that option. So that was great to be able to see that basically right during the public workshop itself. So let's go next slide, please. So similar to the public workshop, if we want, we can take any questions and respond to you with answers to those at this time.
Commission members, any questions?
I think Robert had a question.
So, between the 3 or 4 different alternatives, which one was the most cost-effective?
If I heard you, Robert, as far as of the alternates, which one was the most cost-effective? The alternate one had the lowest cost associated with it, and due to that, you have 1 mobilization, you've got 1 construction period. Whereas alternate 2, you're going to have a higher cost because you're going to have 2 mobilizations. You're going to have 2. You're going to open it up, get the contract, close it down, get the contractor in there, and then move him to the other. So you're going to have 2 mobilizations.
Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Yes, Kip.
Just a couple of points I want to make. There was a couple of comments in Meeting Hunt's presentation. Thank you, team. Well done on the presentation. But a couple of comments about quality of product and so forth on certain alternatives. Just want to make sure to point out that whichever alternative we end up choosing as a department, we will make sure we have the same quality deliverable on any of them. So whichever one we choose will end with the same quality result. And then as far as cost alternatives, that's a great question. We have asked for cost estimates on all of these options and be looking forward to sharing those when those come in to see how comparable they may or may not be in the different option formats. Thank you.
Thank you, Kip. Robert?
Mr. Director, what is your alternative that you prefer?
You know, that's really tough to say. I'm not dodging the question. I really am not. You know, we're here to try to provide a service and try to meet the needs of our users and our community in the best way we can. So what we were hoping to garner from this first workshop and from the presentation tonight and feedback from you as a body, and then Thursday night when we deliver the same presentation to the authority members. And then even, quite frankly, we've got another workshop on the near horizon, probably sometime in October, and then another workshop or so to follow after that. I don't think I can say at this point in time what is our preferred alternative. I think we're going to need a little more feedback to try to see what best meets our needs as a user base, what best meets our needs cost-wise, and you know, try to get a little more feedback to help us answer that question. That is a great question.
Thanks, Kip. Bruce?
That was kind of along with the same lines I was looking at. It seems like item number 2, or number 2, that allow half of the 2,500 foot runway would be open while the other would be closed, versus a complete shutdown that could take upwards of 4 months. I would think that most pilots, if you can accommodate most of the aircraft there, would prefer at least to have something that they can fly into and out of on a daily basis.
Any comments, Chuck?
Yeah, I mean, again, those are the kind of the 2 main options we're looking at. You know, they really seem to, was the alternate 1 versus the alternate 2, where if you do shut it down, it is for a 3 to 4 month period, and then alternate 1, you do have availability for aircraft that can utilize a runway length of between 2,100 feet and 2,100 feet and 2,500 feet. So that does accommodate a number of aircraft that are out there.
So I have a question, and today with materials and the improvement in materials, will this new surface give us a greater longevity than we've enjoyed in the past to the materials with the...
That's a great question as far as on the materials and the construction. So since the project is funded by an FAA, and that was the other thing I wanted to get to, an FAA Airport Improvement Program grant, it is required that we utilize FAA design standards for airport construction. So we do have to use an asphalt P401 mix, but the FAA is looking for at least a 20-year lifespan out of that asphalt. But in many cases, you're going to get much more than 20 years. So those are the materials that we are required to use as far as if we're going to go with an asphalt material.
Robert?
Curious what the difference in design life would be between a grind, a fabric, and overlay section versus a full reconstruction. What's the difference in time between one useful life for full reconstruction and the other one, a grind and overlay?
As far as a useful life between like a grind and overlay, a mill and overlay, and a reconstruction, Jeff, let me turn that back to you because I think you covered that as part of a previous discussion.
Yeah, thank you, Chuck. So a mill and fill type project with a paving fabric, those are a 10-year design life, so it's half. That's considered a rehabilitation. And so we did look at the various alternatives. With respect to a paving fabric, those were common 10 plus years ago, but they're becoming more of a challenge because when it does come back time to improve that pavement section, it really becomes costly to remove those paving fabrics. As effective as they are when they do wear out, it is costly. So the FAA actually, we've had experiences where they don't want to see the paving fabric in there. But based on the lowest subgrade strength values, that's where the rehabilitation option was actually more expensive to accommodate our fleet mix because we had to add so much base that we started raising the elevation of the runway, and that affected the MELS-F approach lighting system. And so it was just cost prohibitive compared to a reconstruction. And going back to the initial question with how will this pavement last in the future, the reason we're doing, because a reconstruction is the preferred option, we're able to put it, it's a lime-treated subgrade, cement-treated subgrade combination, so the water isn't able to infiltrate from underneath, which is one of the biggest factors that cause pavement to fail. So because we're going to have that barrier underneath the aggregate-based section, the goal would be when we do have future improvement projects that they can be a mill and fill type, every 10, 15 years and come in there, grind off the surface, put a new surface on. And we will far exceed that 20-year life. We're really fortunate that Ventura County takes very good pride in their pavements, and that's the reason it's lasted 28 years currently. And we're very judicious about following the seal codes, the FAA recommended pavement procedures, and that's why we've lasted this long. But ultimately, the reconstruction to accommodate the fleet mix was the preferred method.
Thanks, Jeff. Bobby?
Yeah. Just going back to the option number one, or alternative number one, is there a plan afoot to mitigate the pilots that are located at Oxnard by having them relocate to Camarillo for the 4 months or whatever? Is that, because that would, somehow you got to handle those people. They're not just going to sit there for 4 months with their airplanes in the hangar, so they have to go somewhere. Is there thoughts for that?
Hey, Bobby, this is Kip. I'll jump in there. We are going to try to mitigate all of that and orchestrate all of that. That is not at this phase of the project. But, yeah, as we get closer to determining a preferred alternative and we see what that looks like, what kind of effects it's going to have, we'll be able to better orchestrate what you're talking about and come back with further information on that at that point in time.
Yeah, it seems like if you had option 1 and 2, it looks like the two high, the two proposed, the best option sounds like of the ones you proposed. That if you had a way to mitigate the total closure, it might be that could be having some plan to have the pilots go to Camarillo would help make that first option of total closure look better, I think.
Kip, any comments?
Nothing to add other than what I've already stated. No, sir.
Okay. I think we're at a stage where I think I'm entertaining a motion to receive and file. I mean, there's a lot of work left to be done on this. And Robert, do you want to add something?
I just want to ask my final question, and thank you guys for indulging me. Of all the alternatives, which one do you guys feel is the safest alternative as far as construction and operation?
Well, as far as safety safety, any of the alternatives would be conducted in a safe manner for aviation, airport construction projects. So that's a factor we would look into any project that would move forward. So as far as is one safer than the other, we would conduct those for construction all in a safe manner, and those would be submitted to the FAA, the preferred alternative, in a construction safety phasing plan to the FAA.
Well, I understand that, but as far as just when you have operations happening, like half runways are open and closed, construction equipment, materials and supplies stockpiled around, is one alternative safer than that?
Well, and that's why we have the, as far as if we're not doing the full closure, if we're doing, let's say, alternate 2 or alternate 3, we do have operations on the airport while construction is taking place. That's why we would still have in there the required runway safety areas and object-free areas, just like you have now on an airport. So on an airport now, you've got object-free areas off the end of the runway and off to the sides of the runway to protect the runway environment.
Thank you.
And I do have 2 more slides after this if we want to just go to those, unless there's any more questions and answers.
Let's go for it.
Okay, so this was just a summary of the question and answer session from the first public workshop for your information. So we had a total of 27 questions. It was a combination of, it was the raise hand feature. It was conducted in Zoom like this. So we had 14 under the raise hand feature. We had 13 through the chat feature, so they were read off. And then we had 5 questions that were previously received via email that were read aloud to the workshop. And then next slide. So like Kip mentioned, and we talked about it in the beginning, this same presentation will be conducted to the Airport Authority on September 10th. And then we have future public workshops planned in the October and January timeframe. And then just so any questions that can come up, they can go to this email address and or the helpline, which has been established as well. So a lot of good public outreach abilities for this project. And that should be the next slide. That should be the conclusion.
Thank you, Chuck. I'm entertaining a motion to receive and file.
A motion.
Bruce moves to receive and file. Do we have a second?
I second it, Maggie.
Maggie, and would staff take a roll call vote, please?
Robert Trimborn. Robert Trimborn.
Aye.
Maggie Bird.
Yes.
Nanette Metz.
Yes.
Bruce Hamus.
Yes.
Bobby Williams.
Yes.
That motion passes unanimously with 1 abstention.
Thank you, Anna. Moving right along. Easy for me to say, I guess. So, item number 5B, approval of and authorization for the Director of Airports or his designee to execute the Fifth Amendment to lease with Fresh Concepts, LLC, to expand the leased premises. And I guess a lot of this is due to the COVID situation. And staff, if you'd like to make the presentation, I'd appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll introduce this topic a little further and then hand it off to Madeline to see if she has any further comments to make, our lease manager. Due to COVID-19, as you stated, our wonderful restaurant Waypoint, who is owned and operated by Fresh Concepts LLC, is following suit with the rest of the county and the state, for that matter, and probably the nation, in trying to accommodate outdoor seating and so forth. And to do so, they're asking to expand their current leased footprint. It's an area that makes perfectly good sense for them. It's right in front of their restaurant, between them and the ramp that they have access to today. So that's what this item is for. And I'll turn it over to Madeline Harrell, our lease manager, to see if she has any further comments to add to this.
Good evening, Commissioners.
This particular amendment is, as Kip mentioned, is a reflection of desire for him to be able to offer outdoor seating outside with the proper distancing requirements, and to basically keep his business afloat. Because the patio is proximate to patio that he already is servicing. If you recall, there's a nice patio outside the covered portion of his restaurant. So he has made a couple of different changes, and one of them was to add some additional square footage. So if you add in all of the lawn area and basically every area that he will be controlling, it's 5,757 square feet, which at an aviation rate corresponds to approximately $420 a month in rent. The sales that he generates from this area is going to be calculated similarly to the rest of the sales. We get a percentage rent off of this lease as well. So this benefits both the airport and the restaurateur. So we think it's a great idea. Do you have any questions? Mm-hmm.
Well, before we do questions, let's see if we have a motion to approve and authorize the Director of Airports or his designee to execute the Fifth Amendment to lease with Fresh Concepts, LLC, for additional area to be added to the lease premises.
So moved, Bobby.
Thank you, Bobby. Do we have a second?
Second, Maggie.
Thank you, Maggie. Okay, discussion. Any questions?
Question, Chair. Madeline.
Yes.
Madeline, has there been any discussion? I know that a lot of the restaurants now are operating at 25, maybe 50% capacity inside the restaurants, and that may go on for quite a while. And a lot of them are expanding out into parking lots, and in this particular instance, they're expanding out in an area that was, I think it was the grassy area that allows them to have more outdoor seating. But as far as the inside capacity, has there been any discussion of the reduction of rent, or is that specifically based on the percentage of sales that they're able to generate as far as what you get in the rent?
Thank you, Commissioner Hammes. We haven't had any discussion. I believe the county is still prohibiting indoor dining. So it's not an opportunity that he can take advantage of, but, you know, we did offer the initial 2 months of rent waiver for up to a year, so he took advantage of that, as did several other tenants. That was approved by the county. And he's our only restaurant, so that's, unless Kip had a different conversation with him, but really he's in the same boat as most of the other restaurants, of offering to go and just basically coming up with different ideas of how to get the seating that he needs to generate the business. He's also added some evening hours, so he's changed his hours a little bit. This particular amendment has to come before you and go through the board because it is a change in his lease terms. But in terms of his hours and his operating hours, that's pretty much negotiated between landlord and tenant.
So, Madeline, I have a question. So when you talk about a waiver of the rent, but that's not forgiveness. That's just a delay.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I should have used the word deferral. Excuse me. Yes. Yes.
Okay. I mean, pretty important there.
Yes. Excuse me.
Pretty big distinction. So
yes, they have up to a year to repay that 2 months of deferred.
So I mean, God bless these operators that are still up there and looking for a way to stay afloat and also continue to bring revenue into the airport.
Yeah.
Any other questions or comments, commissioners? There being none, I'll call for the question. Staff, can we do a roll call vote?
Robert Trimborn.
Aye.
Maggie Bird. Nanette Metz,
Yes.
Bruce Hamus,
Yes.
Bobby Williams.
Yes.
That motion passes unanimously with one abstention.
Thank you, Anna. So we're down to unfinished business, and this has to do with the proposed amended bylaws of the Ventura County Aviation Advisory Commission that Commissioner Trimborn has worked on, along with a number of other directors, some that are still with us and some that have gone on their way. So I'll turn it over to you, Bob, to bring everyone up to speed.
Thank you. Kip, do you want to let me introduce the entire item? Or
I'm happy to, yeah. So at your February 2019 meeting, your commission requested a review of its bylaws. The item was agendized and further discussed at your March 2019 meeting. During the March meeting, Chair Gary Jacobs at the time created a subcommittee to review the bylaws. The subcommittee convened on multiple occasions, and members of the subcommittee provided a draft of the proposed amended bylaws for your commission's review in the December 2019 meeting. During the December 2019 meeting, it was requested that the Department of Airport staff seek further clarification on a couple of action items which are listed in your agenda packet. We've worked since that time with both the Airport Advisory Commission Chairman and Vice Chairman on those items, and this item is ready to be either further discussed or concluded tonight. So with that, Vice Chair, I'll pass it back to you.
thank you, Kip. Do you want to answer the two bullet point questions?
Yes. So one of the questions was for staff to report back with recommendations as to how commission action should be transmitted to the County of Ventura Board of Supervisors. And I'm reading from the feedback that we received on that inquiry, which states either the commission recommends something or it doesn't. The commission acts as a body, and individual commissioners, are to make the recommendations to the Board of Supervisors through the staff. If DOA, Department of Airport, takes a matter to the Board of Supervisors that the commission has recommended against, it's up to the department to tell the Board of Supervisors about the commission's views, as long as the commission says the commission disapproved. On the commission recommendations, which was the other item seeking clarity, on nearly all items, Department of Airport takes the recommendation to the Board of Supervisors. But if there's something that Department of Airports does not intend to take to the Board of Supervisors, but the commission wishes to communicate a recommendation anyway, the commission can authorize its chair to send a recommendation to the Board of Supervisors. There is no way to guarantee that that will be on the Board of Supervisor agenda, however, without CEO and Department of Airport buy into that, but the commission can send a letter like any other entity sending a letter to the Board of Supervisors requesting something be heard.
Thank you, Mr. Director. Any questions, Director, before we move on?
Just a statement. I think what we've accomplished here is bringing more clarity to what our bylaws are, and more specificity, easy for me to say. But those of us that have been on board for some time, which I guess tonight I'm the senior member, usually Adriana and Gary have been around a while longer, but I applaud the efforts for Bob and his team, and we're back in the 21st century, if you will, on these bylaw changes.
Well, thank you very much. As Kip said, this This all started back in March of 2019 when the ad hoc committee was formed. Adriana Van de Graaf, Harvey Paskowitz, and myself were paneled as like the ad hoc committee to review the bylaws. You know, we reviewed the existing bylaws, which actually were adopted in April of 1986. And we went through the entire document and identified areas that needed improvement. And we looked at content and also format and developed the first draft and second draft, incorporating comments and suggestions along the way, especially from the Department of Airport staff as we pressed forward, because we want to make sure this document met the county's protocols when it comes to bylaws for commissions, because really this has to go for the Board of Supervisors for adoption. So we were very cognizant of that. So we presented the draft back in December of last year, and then we had these the different comment or questions were made to the staff, and Kip just answered those. And so we've incorporated all the comments to date. And if you look at the bylaws in the packet, the only change really from the one that was presented to the commission back in December and now is strictly a formatting change. The bullet points were dropped and the paragraphs were clarified with some new alpha designators for certain sentences. Other than that, it's essentially the same document that we brought before the commission back in December. There is a red line you'll see that was changed. It's pretty much just procedural stuff in the introduction to the bylaws. But one of the things, our goal was to create a document that incorporated the existing bylaws but added clarification in certain areas. Like there was questions about, how does the commission, its relationship to the Board of Supervisors and to other bodies such as the Airport Authority. And so we put that right up front, that we are subordinate to and report directly to the Board of Supervisors. We are their commission, so to speak. And so we aren't subordinate to the authorities. And that was one of the things we really want to make clear to all the commissioners currently on the commission, so to speak, and the ones that will be appointed in the future. We want to give them a roadmap of exactly who they are, what the body was all about, what's expected of them, and roles and responsibilities within the commission. And I think the ad hoc committee and the commission's comments and stuff really created a very well thought out, very thoughtful document that does, I think, capture who we are. And one of the things we did add at the end was procedures on how the commission conducts its own business, so that the public, if they pick up this document and look at it, they'll get a clear indication of, what's at stake here, how the commission operates as a body, and their role, the public's role, when it comes to communicating with the commissioners. So I am very happy with what we've come up with, and I would highly recommend that the commission approve these bylaws and recommend that the Board of Supervisors adopt them at the next, appropriate meeting time.
So is that your motion, Bob?
I'll make that a motion.
Okay. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Bruce. Discussion. Any comments or questions from the commissioners?
I'd like to say that, Robert, I think you and your committee did an excellent, outstanding job in working with the airport and getting some of these issues resolved. And I'm very happy with the work that you guys did, so I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, let's call for the question. Staff, roll call vote, please.
Robert Trimborn,
Aye.
Maggie Bird. Maggie Bird.
Trying, I couldn't get my mouse to work. I got through.
Thank you. Nanette Metz.
Yes.
Bruce Hamus.
Yes.
Bobby Williams.
Aye.
That motion passes unanimously with one abstention. And Chair Weiss, I wanted to let you know that we received a public comment who would like a call, if you would allow it.
And is this on an agenda item?
It's from a Miss Barbara Filkins. It's from a Miss Barbara Filkins, but she did not state what item it is in regards to.
And hate to be a stickler, but when did this come in?
The timestamp on my end is 7:55.
Okay, well, what can we do? I won't go with my normal decorum and protocol. If there's just one, let's go for it.
Thank
I
you.
recommend we hear the comment.
Me too.
Thank you. I will.
Going for it, guys.
Okay. I will go ahead and give Miss Filkins a call, and she will be on the line in just a moment.
You guys are a lot easier than I am, I must tell you.
Just while we're waiting for that call to come in, if you're on mute and you press the space bar, it unmutes you.
Anna?
Yes, Miss Filkins.
Yeah, let me get back into the, let me get into the YouTube. Okay.
Okay, I'll go ahead and start the clock.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay. So let me bring up my audio. And I do have one comment on the various.
Start the clock.
Okay. 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 So here's my one comment. So let me bring up my audio. And I do have one comment on the various. Yeah. On the various alternatives, complete closure. What is the guarantee that we won't have a cost overrun or a, how can I say, change orders that basically on the full closure extend the closure period way beyond the 3 to 4 months proposed?
I would have to say, as chair, that it's a good question, but a bit premature because we're not done with the studies, and we have a couple more scheduled with Mead and Hunt. But I'll let any of the other commissioners address your concerns if they so desire, and then we'll turn it over to Kip. There being none, Kip, do you have any comments?
So she's obviously referring to the presentation on the Oxnard runway redevelopment. Just for clarity for those that might be tuning into the meeting tonight, not the item that we have before us as the bylaws. So just as a point of clarity for those joining us. And your answer is absolutely correct, Mr. Chairman. We would not be able to adequately answer that question at this point in time in this stage of the design. I can tell you that any project that we take on with whatever alternative that we were to choose as a body or as a department will ensure that the costs are all included that we would anticipate as a worst case scenario. But obviously, until we have more information, we're not able to fully address that.
Thank you, Director Turner.
Thank you, Ms. Felkin.
Okay.
I'll be terminating the call. Thank you.
So moving right along, for a little comedy relief, I was always told that no good deed goes unpunished. So here we're at. So we have Director's report. Director Turner, you're on.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A pretty brief report tonight. I wanted to update the commission on something that we had worked on together previously. It was the Aspen Option Agreement. You may recall this agreement was brought before your body for approval and was approved by your body on July the 6th of 2020, and then in front of the Oxnard Airport Authority on July the 9th of 2020. While those advisory bodies approved it, when we had it slated for the Board of Supervisors for July 28th, I, as the director, pulled this item from the Board of Supervisors, and we're further vetting some runway design concerns that we had before we take that in front of the Board of Supervisors. So I just wanted to update this body on that action taken since you had taken action on that item earlier. Another update I wanted to provide was on the Cloud9 option agreement. Due to COVID-19 reasons, there was delayed that put an unfair burden on the RKR Cloud9 option agreement that they had with the county. Because of that and because of those COVID-19 reasons, and also because their current agreement expired on September the 10th, or expires on September the 10th. This was an item that we realized in any kind of fair capacity that we needed to provide to them an extension. So we went to the Board of Supervisors on September the 1st and got them. I'll just go. Got them an extension until March the 10th, 21, to basically continue their option agreement to make up for the time lost due to COVID-19. And then also as a reminder, we will be bringing to your body for hopefully final vote on November the 2nd, the proposed hangar lease revision. You may recall back prior to COVID in the March meetings, just before the county and the state went on lockdown, if you will, and before the world sort of changed as we know it today, we had gotten pretty far along in the hangar revised lease, if you will. And in the authority meeting that followed your meeting, we were asked to go back and look at 6 specific items. We did that, and we were immediately actually ready to come back the following month. But as you may recall, those meetings were canceled, and it took us a while to figure out the virtual world that we live in now. We feel like this virtual world is now where we can present this item. So we'll be bringing this item to you in November and to the authority in November, hopefully for a final effort into the Board of Supervisors on December the 8th. And then also as a reminder of our master plan study, we have received a full grant for that effort, $750,000 grant to completely fund that study. So we're excited about that. It includes system component studies that will include both airports, and we'll have a lot public process. So we're just now kicking that off, and you'll be hearing and seeing more on that, including the workshops to come following that. And Mr. Chairman, that is all of the direct report tonight.
Thank you, Director Turner. Commissioners, does anyone have a question for Director Turner?
I had a question. Kip, it wasn't in your dissertation, but I wanted to go back earlier at the beginning of the meeting. We had a call-in, and the guy was asking about Amazon leasing 150,000 square feet and hinting that there could be a possibility of them using the airport as bringing products in and out. And I guess my question is that a bad thing?
No, that would be a wonderful thing. I wish it were true.
I wasn't quite sure what he was getting at, whether he was for it or against it, but I don't know either.
It would be a wonderful thing, but unfortunately, there's no basis of truth to it that I'm aware of.
Yeah, okay. All right, thank you.
Any other questions for Director Turner?
Is this the commission comments, or are we not there yet?
No, we're not there yet.
Okay, sorry. Go ahead.
No problem. So, agenda item 8, reports. I suggest we receive and file unless there are any comments from our commissioners or questions as to the reports noted. Okay, there being none, receive and file. Agenda item 9, correspondence. Any questions or comments? There being none. I think we're getting to what Commissioner Williams, commission comments. You've got the floor, Commissioner Williams.
Okay, thanks, Steve. Just a question, really. I noticed that the new hangars at Camarillo are coming right along, the new British hangars owned by the county. And I was wondering, is there going to be a way, or are you just going to go straight to the waiting list, or are you going to offer some of those to existing tenants for an upgrade? And
That's a great question, and we are actually leaning in that direction. We're still trying to internally evaluate the hangar needs and that we have, but I can tell you that we're leaning towards the direction of possibly putting out the new hangars for existing hangar base potential upgrades first, and should be ready to probably better report on that one way or the other to a little more finality in the next month or so.
okay, do you have a time that you're thinking they'll be on the market, ready to rent?
Well, we obviously don't want to get ahead of the construction completion. You're right; it is appearing to be on schedule at the moment. But after doing a lot of projects over the last 30 years, I've learned to actually wait until the project's done before you advertise it. So we'll do that on this one as well.
Well, you can informally put my name in as interested. I'd like to tour one and see if I want to upgrade. Okay.
Copy. If we allow that to be offered for upgrades, and I appreciate that and understand that you're probably sincere and joking, but if we do offer that, it'll be a blanket offer to all of our tenant base at one time, and it'll be a first come, first serve.
Okay. Thank you. That's all I have, Steve. Thank you.
Thanks, Bobby. Any other commissioner comments? I have a comment. Actually, I just wanted to thank the staff and the commission for what I consider to be a great meeting. You guys did an incredible job. I think I'm the only one that fouled up on being on the wrong page at a couple different times, but I think that the meeting went relatively well in these. We're still getting up to speed on doing these Zoom meetings. Not as easy as it first appears, but we're taking care of business. So I want to thank you all, and thank you for putting up with me after all these years.
Thank you, Mr. Director.
Well, I'd like to take a moment and thank my team, because I can tell you this is not my strong suit at all. But we have a wonderful team at the Department of Airports, and Anna and John particularly in heading up the technology side of the house, and they're the ones we should all be thanking. So they do a wonderful job. Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, if there are no other commission comments, I'll look to a motion to adjourn.
A motion?
Second?
I'll second it. Bob.
Okay. I don't know that we really need a roll call vote. I'll just call the meeting adjourned, and thank you all. And be safe and stay healthy.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Bye. See you.